So the June Joust, yeah, it's been pretty insane so far. The meta has been chaotic, there's been upsets all over the place, and now to top it all off, we have two unexpected visitors joining us for the final four of this June Joust tournament. The Atlanta Reign and New York Excelsior are in the finals. Like, that is absolutely mind-blowing. I was not anticipating either of these teams making it, and I'm sure a bunch of you are right there with me. I mean, to be honest, it felt unlikely for even one of these teams to be making it this far, let alone both of them at the same time. All of it has kind of provided this very weird dynamic in a way between these four teams. On one hand, like I said, you have Atlanta and New York, the underdogs, if you will, the two teams that were not supposed to be here. But then you have the Shanghai Dragons and the Dallas Fuel, who were anticipated to make it back here, or at least be in a position to compete to get back here, you know? They're both Melee finalists, they both looked really good during this qualifier, so they were supposed to be here, but then you have them facing off now against the two teams that are kind of coming out of nowhere. All of that got me thinking, can the Atlanta Reign and or NYXL make some sort of noise in this tournament? Or are they just going to go home early and get wrecked by the so-called superior teams, if you will, in Dallas and Shanghai? I figured this kind of deserves its own separate video. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of this stuff in my upcoming prediction video, but in that situation, I have to keep it kind of brief. Here, we can kind of go a bit more in detail, you know? We can bring out all of our unfiltered opinions on what we think of this current situation. Can the NYXL and the Reign actually do something? What do they need to do? What can they do? Is it even possible for them to go far? This is such a big point of interest for me right now, because again, and I cannot stress this enough, I did not expect either of these teams to make it this far. In fact, I thought there was no way in hell I would see either of these teams. I mean, the NYXL, I didn't even think they were going to qualify for the knockouts. I didn't think they were going to get lucky with the Fusion choking and everything, and Chengdu not playing well, but here they are, and then the Reign are getting hot. Like, I just find all of it very, very interesting, so I want to talk about it, and all of this is going to be unscripted, because I don't really have the time to sit down and prepare a big video for this, but I wanted to talk about it, so we're just going to go with the flow. Make sure to let me know what you think of this, by the way, down in the comments section. What's great about these is they don't require a ton of prep, they're very easy to make, they're low edits, so I can kind of just squeeze these in between videos that do require preparation, you know? It's a way to give you guys more content, so again, if this is something you want, make sure to let me know, and I will try and deliver more in the future with this kind of content. Okay, so let's get down to business. Can the NYXL and Atlanta Reign do something in this tournament? Can they make some more magic happen? So my initial response is probably not. I think they're definitely underdogs coming into this thing, but I wouldn't say it's completely impossible for them to at least, you know, kind of win a game or two in this. The good news both for Atlanta and NYXL fans is that at the very least, there is a chance you could get one win. It's actually guaranteed that one of you will win at least one game during this tournament because you play each other in the first round. And it goes without saying, this is best case scenario for both sides. Getting to avoid Dallas and Shanghai in that first round is great because all you really need to do now is get one other win after this game that you're playing, and boom, suddenly you're in the June Joust finals. Whether you win it or not, I'm not too sure, but the fact that you make it there means that you're getting an automatic +2 to your point total in the standings, which will be fantastic in the long run when you look at the playoffs. But of course, that is a lot easier said than done. The path is a lot more brutal than that, and it goes beyond the first game because in the winners finals, you are guaranteed to play the Dallas Fuel or Shanghai Dragons, who are widely regarded as the top teams of their respective regions. But with how wild the June Joust has been, anything's possible. All it really takes is maybe some luck, like perhaps the other team doesn't play that well on a certain day, maybe you have a really good day, maybe you have a really good game plan, whatever it may be. Sometimes some things kind of just go your way, and that could end up happening in this tournament. Okay, so in my book, the Atlanta Reign need to avoid the Dallas Fuel. The most ideal scenario for them is to play the NYXL, beat them, and then play the Shanghai Dragons because those are teams who like to embrace the Orisa comps, and that plays up to the Atlanta Reign's strengths. The Orisa Diva and Orisa Sigma comps have been the things they have been embracing since the start of the June Joust, you know? This is what they like to play, and if they're in their comfort zone, they could absolutely outplay you. With the exception of that Gladiators blunder, they've been defeating everybody left and right that has come at them, and a lot of these games haven't even been that close. I mean, look at what they did to the Shock and how they outplayed the Outlaws and everything like that. They were just beating everybody up and showing that, yeah, you're not better than us at this. We may not be great at everything, but this is a comp we will outplay you on. Again, it really does play up to their strengths. Look at Gator. Orisa is arguably the best character in his repertoire, and he's one of the best Orisas in the league in my opinion, and I think he kind of bounces off of Hawk really well there, because Hawk, I think, feels most comfortable and at home when Gator's on that character as well. That's what they found success with back in Contenders when they got to the finals of the Gauntlet, I believe. He can play well on the Sigma or the Diva, it doesn't really matter. He feels comfortable in that situation. Then, of course, you have the DPS. Kind Pelican, they're going to be nasty no matter what you make them play for the most part, but this is a really good situation for them in particular, where they can kind of just embrace what they're really, really good at, like with Kai on the Ashe and the McCree, and then you also have Pelican just being one of the best echoes in the league right now. Like, when those two are on, like they were against the Shock in Boston, it's pretty hard to beat them, and they can basically keep up with every single team in the league. But this particular situation works out very well for them because their teammates are also in their comfort zone. Again, Gator and Hawk, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. Masa seems to finally be coming into his own on Brigitte at least a little bit. Iris has been popping off on the BAP and the Ana. Everything works well for those two because they can play off their teammates so well, and they can give them that better support that they really need to play well on a consistent basis, rather than sometimes where they end up losing to some of these superior teams because they don't have the good support. That was a big time fear of mine heading into this year, where Kind Pelican, they'd really carry and keep their teams in games, but it wouldn't matter because the rest of their team just wouldn't be up to par with them. But now it's not as much of an issue. Obviously, Kind Pelican are still the strong suit of this team, and without them, this team is totally lost, but still, they have the right support going for them right now because everyone is feeling pretty comfortable and, I guess, confident in a way too. And what's really cool is this confidence they have gotten seems to have rubbed off on other compositions, because their Winston Reaper Rush comp that they were playing with the Moira and everything, that didn't look bad at all. I mean, they literally defeated the Shock on it, and the Shock were able to beat teams like Dallas and Washington using it. So honestly, I know it's going to sound kind of lame, but the Reign just have to keep doing what they have been doing. They have a good system in place, and clearly everything's working for them, so why stop now, you know? They have a really great thing going for themselves with the Orisa comps, but then on the control maps, clearly they can play at least a little bit of the Winston Rush, so they kind of have it figured out, I feel like. Now it's just a matter of execution. There's two potential roadblocks that I see coming up in their path, though. One is if Kai and Pelican start to get slowed down a bit, because obviously there's a chance they might not be able to dominate at that level every single game. And if that does happen, are the Reign still going to be able to pull off a win? Can you count on Gator and Hawk and everybody else to pick up the slack? Like, that just doesn't seem that likely to me, because Kind Pelican are the core of this team. So yeah, if the Reign can do that, I think they can win. They just have to invest in these two as much as humanly possible, and they have to continue to support them in all ways they can and give them the space they need to pop off. But that's a lot easier said than done, because some teams might have really good game plans to stop them, and if that's the case, I think the Reign might be screwed. But there's one other worry I have, and that is running into the Dallas Fuel, because as we've seen over the last couple of months, those guys are kind of just meta-proof. It doesn't really matter what you play against them, they're just going to demolish you and beat you and get those clutch wins every single time, unless you're just better at what they do, which doesn't happen very often. If the Reign run into these guys, I'm very worried about them, because Dallas, they're just not like everybody else. They don't play the normal things. They're going to really mix it up and play what they think works, and that's going to throw off a team like the Reign, I feel like. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't know how they're going to shut down the Fearless Hanbin tank combo if they're going wild in the back lines alongside Sparkle on Doomfist or Echo, whatever he may be playing. Like, there's just so much to stop there, and I think that Fielder also has just been playing so well as of late. I don't know what the Reign are going to do to stop that team. So they really, really need some luck. Like, I mean, desperately need it. In theory, the Reign should be able to defeat the Dallas Fuel because they can play bunched up together with the Orisa comps and kind of just throw off the Doomfist and everything, and then they can exploit a weakness with Kai potentially by just having him outsnipe the enemies with his deadly hit scan abilities, and Dallas don't really have anything like that to work with. But we saw the Gladiators fail to do that miserably. Like, I mean, it was crazy how badly they were failing. They tried putting Bird Ring on like the Ashe and the Widowmaker, and it basically did not make any sort of difference aside from Hollywood. And they even tried going super crazy counter Sparkle, I guess you could say, with the Torb. They had the Brig, you have the Orisa comps, but none of it made any sort of difference whatsoever. Unless the Reign are simply built different, I have no idea what they plan to do any better than the Gladiators did. Maybe the Reign could take an extra map or something, but how can they clutch out a win against the clutch gods of the league right now, and arguably the best team we have? I don't think think they have it in them. If they play Shanghai, maybe there's a bit better of a chance because Shanghai's more willing to kind of just embrace what is the meta and doing what they think is the common comp that everybody else is playing. We've seen them play the Orisa and all that good stuff. But I don't know with Shanghai either. The Dragons are such a scary team anytime a tournament comes up. We've seen it time after time in the last year or so I don't know what the Dragons could possibly have in store for the Reign. Like, they might just outplay them, I'm being honest with you. Yeah, Atlanta look really good in this composition, but so do the Dragons. Maybe the key is to embrace this Winston Rush stuff because Asia hasn't really liked to play it all that much, so maybe the Dragons won't be that great at it if they haven't practiced it all that much. But even then, especially like on control, Lee Jae Gon is somebody that's just really hard to keep up with. I don't know what they're going to do about him. And Fleta, he could definitely keep up with Pelican. I think the Dragons have all of the tools to stop the Reign in their place. But hey, sometimes hot streaks kind of just override all of that. So maybe the Reign do have a chance. I mean, if Masa can really step up as Lucio and kind of go crazy like Lee Jae Gon did, and then Kai and Pelican get it going early, maybe they could win this thing. Again, I kind of see them as underdogs with a matchup with the Dragons, but it's not impossible. Not as bad as with Dallas, I think. But still, no matter who they face in the next round, if they were to beat New York, it's a tough uphill matchup. You either play the Perfectionist and the Dragons, who are just really good in tournaments, or you're going to play the weird team who just beats everybody up all the time in Dallas. Either way, it's a tough game, and I wish Atlanta luck. But what about their first round matchup with the NYXL? Well, that's a different story. I think in that situation, the Reign actually might be able to come out on top, or at least have the advantage coming into this thing. The big factor that really makes me think the Reign could have the upper hand in this one is the potential DPS difference we're looking at. No offense to Flora and Feather, I think they're a great duo. They're on the up and coming, they're young, very talented. But Kai and Pelican, they feel like they're already here, you know? They are superstars. They're one of the top-notch premier DPS duos in the league. If you're going to count on one side to outplay the other, you have to lean more towards Atlanta just because of their feats and their overall skill level. But it also comes down to what the NYXL plan to do. Are they going to stick with this Orisa Zarya comp that worked so well for them against the Spark, or do they have some other things in store for us? But will any of it really matter? I just don't know. I feel like a big reason why the Spark fell to New York was because they weren't exactly anticipating playing them in the knockouts because so much needed to go the NYXL's way for them to make it there. It just didn't seem like a likely outcome for them to be here, but they made it. Everything somehow went their way, so the Spark just weren't ready. But the Reign in all likelihood will be ready. They are preparing for this matchup, and unless the NYXL somehow come up with another crazy comp, the Reign are going to know how to counter anything that they throw at them, basically. And I think they're just a younger and inexperienced roster, so it just doesn't really bode well for New York. So I think in that situation, Atlanta probably could win a game. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling about the Reign heading into this. They definitely could at least go kind of far. They could win their game against New York at the very least. After that, it seems kind of up in the air. Maybe they could win one other game, but I think it's a pretty small chance of them winning the entire thing overall. But that's okay. I mean, obviously, you want to win the whole thing if you're a Reign fan, but just being here is a really good sign because that's going to help out even more with your playoff aspirations. The Reign are coming off a really good qualifier in June, and getting that extra point alongside it by being in this tournament is absolutely huge for them. Okay, now let's shift over to the NYXL, who in my opinion are probably the biggest underdogs of this tournament. They're the ones who have the smallest chance of taking it home, or even getting a win for that matter. Because as I was just saying, it's going to take a lot for this young roster to really go far. They aren't really supposed to be super good this year. They could still be solid. I always thought that ever since the start of the season that they have a chance to at least have a decent campaign, but nothing that warrants, like title contender status or the ability to win tournaments. If they maybe add another star or two or a bit more veteran presence, then perhaps, but they just seem a little too young, a bit too raw still for them to make it that far. They're an up-and-coming team, so this I feel like it's going to be more of a learning experience, if anything at all. But does that mean they won't be impactful at all in this tournament and they'll kind of just go out with a whimper? Well, not necessarily. I still think they could be pretty competitive through thick and thin. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to get any victories. It's hard for me to tell what this team is going to do. Was that Orisa Zarya thing kind of just a one-time thing, a strategy they wanted to use against the Spark, or is this something they're going to adopt as their own and they'll continue to use it throughout the rest of this tournament? I don't really know what their plan is. At the very least, even if they don't utilize the Zarya, I'd like to see them continue to use the Orisa-centric comps. It works for a lot of teams. In fact, I think most teams kind of prefer it. They're a bit better on it than the Rush. So they should probably stick with it. I mean, the Dragons, the Reign, they both like it a lot. So you might as well just stick with what works for you instead of going back to the Winston, which is a lot more risky in my opinion. If most of your opposition prefers the slower paced comps that you like more, then just go for it. I don't see a reason why you should be changing up anything. Unless that's the plan, of course, for them to again try and throw off their opposition. If that's the case, at the very least, they could end up giving Atlanta a run for their money or even beating them because the last couple of years, they haven't really been known for their mid-game adaptations. If you can throw them off during a match and they can't really get comfortable, usually they falter. That's how it's gone with them. Atlanta have always been very momentum-based, but that's the thing. First, you have to find a way to stop them, and I don't know if New York have it in them. They have to adapt to some sort of situation. They have to find some sort of plan where they can slow down Kind Pelican significantly. And in a double shield meta, you're kind of just asking for Flora and Feather to do it at that point, and that's a very risky play considering that Kind Pelican are the favored duo. Unless, of course, the NYXL are trying to force some errors out of some other positions, like maybe they want to abuse the support position, kind of like some of the other teams from the weekend did, like with Dallas against the Outlaws and what they did to Juby, or what the Reign were able to do to FD God for various reasons. I don't know if the DPS will be able to do it necessarily, but maybe the key lies within the Zarya. Perhaps that is part of their plan. Just the threat of the Graviton Surge kind of forcing out supports to make mistakes and use their cooldowns early and whatnot. Maybe that's the key. Even with the Zarya, it might not be very easy to throw off the Reign because they've seen it in action now. They've studied the film with the Sparks, so they might be fully prepared for that too. Plus, it's not exactly the same in terms of getting value with Zarya when you're playing a Winston comp compared to Double Shield or like Orisa Diva. It's a very different feeling. So the Zarya honestly might not work as well in this type of situation. It could have just been a full-on counter to what the Spark were running, and it's just not something that is ideal for any of these upcoming teams that they're playing in the tournament. I just don't know, man. No matter how I slice it, this feels like a very difficult and uphill battle for the New York Excelsior. I just don't know if this NYXL team is good enough or consistent enough for that matter to get a win in this tournament. I absolutely love that this team is led by Jonak and that they have a resurgent Yakpung on there. They're sticking with Bianca. It's great that they still have faith in him after a year. And I'm loving some of these new rookies. I think they're helping this team make some great strides at a pretty fast rate, but I just don't know if any of it is enough. They're not really experienced enough. Some of those guys are, but not all of them. They don't really have all of the tools and the experience needed to make a run like this. I think this is the first step, getting their feet wet in a tournament like this. It could help go a long way in the future, but right now in the present, I just don't know if they have it. But the good news for the NYXL is it's kind of a low-pressure environment for them, and I say that because not a lot of people have faith in them still. No one thought they'd be here, and nobody thinks they're going to advance far in this tournament either. Outside of their fans, I would say, and maybe a few other people who are just hoping a random prediction pans out for them. Because they don't have a lot of crazy pressure and high expectations on their shoulders, they can just play and see what happens, you know? If they don't go far, it's whatever. They don't have to feel too disappointed in themselves. But at the same time, because no one's really counting on them, maybe they can do something with it. Perhaps one of these other teams will crack under the pressure and they can take advantage of that. As I've said before, teams with low expectations are usually very scary to deal with. I mean, just last year alone during the playoffs, we saw it happen with the Justice. Nobody thought they were supposed to go far, but they made it to the losers finals. They were one game away from making the Final Four. And I mean, it's not just esports I'm talking about either, or the Overwatch League. I mean, just in general with sports, these types of things happen every single year where these teams with not a lot of expectations end up doing a lot better than we think, and they make some noise somehow. Look at the New York Knicks this year for basketball. Or what about in 2007 for all my NFL fans out there when the New York Giants, as a wild card team, won the Super Bowl, beat the undefeated Patriots. New York sports magic, it happens all the time. Maybe the NYXL can keep the trend going and have that magic happen. I mean, Jonak's been part of some magical NYXL teams in the past. He knows what it's like to be here. So maybe, just maybe, the NYXL can do something. If the NYXL intend to at least win a game or two in this thing, then a few things have to go their way besides luck. One is I need to see their support step it up. I think Jonak and Friday have been up and down so far this year, and we need to see them play more like they did against the Spark. You know, super consistent, aggressive, but not too aggressive. They just have to do the right thing and make better decisions. They have to be disciplined. 2, they have to try and embrace these Orisa comps more. Even if there's no Zarya, whatever it is, they should just try and play these more slow-paced bunker things. I think it works a lot better for them than it does with the Winston. They look so much better. I know we only had a small sample. It was only one game, but they just seemed so much more confident. So this is what they should be sticking with, in my opinion. That might mean that it's going to be tough to stop some of these DPS players on these other teams, but I think it's worth the risk if it means you can have a bit more consistency with your tank play. And finally, the DPS have to continue to play even better and find new ways to break their limits. Feather and Flora, they've been very good so far. I'm very impressed with what they have done despite having all of this responsibility on their shoulders, but they have to play even better than this if they want a chance, if I'm being completely honest with you. How they did against Architect and Shy is a great step in the right direction, but now they have to do it consistently, you know? These are some big-time duos that they're going up against. These guys are crazy. They're making plays all the time, so they have to somehow match that level. They have to match Fleta and Lip. They have to match Sparkle and Doha. They have to match Kai and Pelican. You've seen what those duos can do. They're crazy. They take over games on a moment's notice. Now it is Flora and Feather's turn to do that. If they can't do that, the likelihood of the NYXL winning is very, very tiny. I mean, it's already going to be a tough matchup for them no matter who they play, but that would be the icing on the cake if their DPS simply cannot keep up with some of these other premier players in the league. Because they're young and the NYXL have been all over the place this year, I don't know how much I like their chances consistently. Maybe they could pull off one win and play really well, but after that, it's kind of up in the air if you ask me, which is why I do not have a lot of faith in the NYXL to do anything really in this tournament. If they pull off something and get some sort of win, that would be more than enough to tell me that they kind of did their job and they had a successful tournament run. But even just being here, I think, again, is really great for them. This experience is going to go a long way for a young team like this, and it can only help them get stronger in the future, and hopefully I'll prepare them for a potential playoff run in the future. But yeah, them in the rain, they're underdogs heading into this thing, but that's okay, because for one, they're getting points out of this no matter what. That's a great thing for them. It'll help give them a nice little boost in the standings. But also, them being here is just a really cool thing because it means the competitive nature of the league is at an all-time high currently. In so many other previous tournaments, it's like, oh, teams A, B, C, and D, we all know they'd be here. But no, it's not really like that this time around, you know? 2 wild cards are in here, and I think that makes things very, very interesting because who knows how far they truly can go. We can sit here and speculate all we want to, but at the end of the day, the June Joust has been a magical thing, so anything's possible. It gets boring when the same teams are always there constantly, all the time, like the same 4 or 5 teams. So this is a very refreshing thing, and it's something I'm very much looking forward to. More new teams in like a tournament final setting. We already got it with Dallas in the previous stage and with Chengdu, and now we have New York and Atlanta joining in. Overall, my expectations for these groups are very minimal given their past and what they've done so far this year, but my hopes are at an all-time high. I really do want the underdogs to go far and prove some people wrong, including myself. That would make me very happy. Predictions are coming out on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk about these matchups even more in the future, but for now, I'll leave it at that. That's what I think of the Atlanta Reign and the NYXL and how they could end up doing in the tournament and what they need to do well for that matter. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and you want to see more Overwatch League discussion videos like this one in the future. And be sure to let me know what you think of the NYXL and the Atlanta Raid heading into this tournament down in the comments below. And again, give me some feedback about this type of video. Do you want to see more of them in the future, or would you prefer if I stayed with the more prepared content with scripts and everything? Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate and love each and every one of you so much. And until next time, this is ATP. Signing out. Peace.